regular Reddit user. I like posting stories here. Even though my stories don't get much attention, I don't write them for fame or money. Writing just makes me feel better. I have dozens of short stories and a few unfinished books. This isn't even my real job. I work at a gas station. But I've always been interested in writing since I was a kid. Usually I post 3 or 4 stories every week in different communities. At best, they get a few thousand views. But I'm not writing this as fiction. For the past few weeks, strange things have been happening. And if I've pieced together everything correctly, a serial killer is after me. And in a few days, I'm going to die. I don't know what triggered the beginning of all this. My shift ended at midnight. It was a normal Friday night. After work, I went home. Before bed, I opened my laptop. I had this crime novel idea in my head for days, and I wanted to start writing it. I wrote until around 3 a.m. I was half asleep when I typed the last sentence. And at last, the sound of the killer's footsteps echoed in the empty street. I was proud of the first chapter. I shut down my laptop and went to the kitchen for some water. While drinking, I saw 2 shadows outside the window. At first, I thought it was just a tree swaying in the wind. Then I heard a woman scream. I froze. The street was completely empty. The scream cut off suddenly. Now, there were 2 shadows on the building. One was lying still on the ground. The other was moving. Then it quickly slid out of sight over the roof. I went outside to check, still in my slippers and pajamas. The street was silent. But when I reached the neighboring building, I couldn't believe what I saw. A woman was slumped against the wall, covered in blood. I recognized her. She was the kind of lady who brought me pie when I first moved in. I called 911 and tried to stop the bleeding, but when I checked her pulse, it was gone. She was already dead. The paramedics confirmed it when they arrived. The police asked me a bunch of questions. Did I see the killer? Where was I? Did I notice anything unusual? They took my statement at the station. I got home around 5 a.m., collapsed onto my bed, and thought, this was the worst night of my life since prom. If only it had stayed that way. The next day, I was a mess. I couldn't focus at work. My boss let me leave early. When I came home, the police had blocked off my street with yellow tape and squad cars. The noise was unbearable. So I turned back to my story. Writing always calmed me down. I finished writing the second chapter I had planned in my head. After writing the last sentence, I heard a siren from next door. His final words sent a shiver through him. Later, I went for a walk in the park to clear my head. I sat on a bench watching kids play when an old man with a cane sat next to me. He asked, "Did you hear about that murder?" "I didn't just hear about it," I said. "I saw it from my window." His eyebrows shot up. "Really?" "Yeah." He sighed. "You can't trust people anymore. You never know who's good or evil." I nodded. I was suddenly uncomfortable. I stood up to leave. The man called after me, "Good day, son, and don't forget to watch your back." I told myself it was nothing, just a random warning. But his words kept echoing in my head all the way home. That night, I sat back down at my laptop. I wrote furiously. Hours later, I typed the ending of chapter 3. He barely dodged in time. Looking up, he saw that same face staring down at him. The next day at work, things got worse. A black SUV pulled in. The driver got a receipt for gas. Then a woman walked in too. She looked strange. Her eyes were wide open, unblinking. I ignored her. When the man who just got the receipt mentioned a problem with the pump, I went outside. It was acting up occasionally. I helped him. When I came back, she was standing right at the automatic doors. I almost crashed into her. Startled, I stumbled backward, right into the path of the SUV that was pulling out. I barely avoided getting run over. The woman didn't even flinch. She just stared at me. For some reason, this woman had really gotten on my nerves. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. Then she turned and walked away. My shift was over, so I left. When I got home, the police teams and the crime scene were gone. I desperately needed a distraction. I found myself at the computer again. This time, I really felt the urge to write. After 4 hours of uninterrupted writing, I typed the final sentence of the chapter. And finally, he heard the sound he feared. Knock, knock, knock. As I always do, I made my coffee and started reading the story I had written from beginning to end. The reason I do this is that I write in parts, so I don't always capture the flow of the story perfectly. While reading, the story took on a whole new dimension in my mind. I read the first part in detail. While correcting typos, something in a line caught my attention. He ran towards the direction of the scream. He knew he was too late. She was already gone. He collapsed beside the woman's lifeless body, and at last, the sound of the killer's footsteps echoed in the empty street. A theory began to form in my head. I continued reading, unconcerned. It was just a coincidence. Every time he tapped his cane on the ground while talking, he flinched. Finally, unable to stand the strange old man any longer, he got up. As he turned around, the old man called out to him, "Don't forget to check your back." He didn't reply. The man's last words had caused him to tremble. I started reading the next line. Again, when I reached the last paragraph, I noticed the same thing. He raised his head. He was startled by the bulging eyes that suddenly appeared before him. His feet moved back as if wanting to flee. At this moment, he hadn't noticed the SUV spinning and screaming down the road. He barely dodged in time. Looking up, he saw that same face staring down at him. I sat up straight in my seat. I was in indescribable fear. My eyes welled up as I read the last line. He understood now. All the pieces had fallen into place. Even the chair he was sitting on suddenly felt uncomfortable. He couldn't stay in place any longer and jumped up. He paced around frantically, his ears focused on a single sound. He sat on the couch to calm himself. He wanted to believe it was all his imagination. To lessen his fear even a little, he buried his face in the pillow. He waited in horror for the slow sound of the door. And finally, he heard the sound he feared. Knock, knock, knock. This couldn't be. It was impossible. I don't know how I didn't realize this while writing, because I never considered the possibility of something like this happening. I thought I was inspired by my experiences when writing. It was the exact opposite. I was living what I was writing. I started pacing the room. I thought about calling the police. There was no crime committed yet. And as I wrote, I hadn't even heard the sound of the door yet. I thought I was mixing up timelines in my head. Maybe I had lived it first and then written it, remembering it differently in my head. In fact, I believe this possibility quite strongly. I calmed myself down a bit. As I said, reading too many horror stories made me confuse the real world with fiction. It was all my fabrication. All of it. And then I heard it. 3 knocks on my door. I froze. Looked through the peephole. No one was there. Maybe I imagined it? Maybe I misheard? But then, louder this time. 3 more knocks. And 30 seconds later, again. I don't know what to do. I thought about deleting the story. I even rewrote the ending so the killer just vanished. But the knocking hasn't stopped. Maybe this is my last note before I die. I'm going to try to escape. If I don't post again in the next few days, well, I guess my story didn't get a happy ending. Thank you so much for listening to my narration of this wonderful story. Don't forget to support the author, which I have linked in the description, as well as the original story. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my patrons, Scott, Old Penguin, Ellie Hutmeyer, Mr. Sankofa, Austin My Love, Rinku Star, William Hartley, Cupcake Hips, Alonzo, Icy Narrates, Jesse Hartley, Eric Cifuentes, Lawrence Wallen, and Melissa Perez. I also try to link a different charity or a different cause every month and maybe a little more. So don't forget to check out the description to support the author of the story you just listened to and to maybe help somebody else out, even if it's just $1. As always, if you guys have a prayer request, please let me know in the comments, shoot me a message on Discord. I would love to know how I can be praying for you. Thank you guys so much. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.